Hello, good morning, and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host and disembodied hands, Quindy, absentee people, Justin and John, and a waggy tail who doesn't want to do her job today. Kiki! Kikers, come up! Oh, there we go. There we go. A Kiki who is camera shy today. Oh, there we go. Oh man, do I have to lift you? When I said I wanted to do some weights, this isn't what I meant. This isn't what I meant. It's not what I meant. Yeah. Up, up, up. Yay. Yes. Oof. Ah. Ooh. You're a dweeb. You dog. You silly dog. All right. All right, giant dog. Oh. She's kind of beastly the last couple days. She's, no teeth. Exiled. She's kind of regressing a bit. Good girl. I'm going to give you a bully. 1 second. Yeah, she wants to be Miss Bitey Face, and she's been a little harder to wrangle in the morning. And she generally wants to be, I know, she's just bored. She doesn't want any of her usual things to keep her busy. She wants, new things, and it's like, well, you can't always have new things. Learn to be bored, dog. So yeah, like that. It be like that with the Keekster these days. But yeah, so hey, we've got a female scribe, which we blued. We blued out. I'm just thinking about doing the bottom of the book blue too. Yeah. I'm kind of thinking traditional Templar colors here, the blue and white, but that's kind of my thought on this model. And maybe we'll do blonde. Maybe we'll do blonde hair. It's either got to be blonde or brown, I think, for her. But yeah, I'm thinking about the cover of the book also being blue, so I want to grab... Oh, she's got little... Oh, it's quills, it's feathers. Yeah, see, this is what 3D sculpting lets you do really well. Because you can blow up the model and you can get so fine with it, you can put a little, literal jar of quills on her hip, which is pretty cool, I think you'll admit. Pretty darn cool. But yeah, this is just a neat mini. I really like it. The detail is so sharp, and she's got a great expression. With even to the point where you can make one eyebrow lifting, right? Like it's, yeah, Graniko. Yep, and it's Alpaca Wednesday. Yeah. So I realized I went to buy my my big Sophie yesterday and realized that because I was not teaching classes, nobody had given me a badge. So I emailed Justin and John and Ron about it to see if I should buy my own badge or if they were gonna say, oh, we guess you do stuff for us, so maybe you can have a badge. I'm okay either way. She paints herself. This is one of those models where I would say good competition mini, because she is very clean. There is not a single part of her that's phoned in. Single piece, plenty of room for showing that you can do fine details or even do blending, but not too much blending. Good amount of skin tones, opportunity for freehand on the book. This is what I would call a very good competition model if you were going to do a 28mm competition model. Just because, I did miss a mold line on the page, though, so I'm going to have to get that real quick. I know, they should give me one, since I'm, at this point, I'm streaming, so I've been streaming so much for them for so long. But, I don't want to be that entitled person, so if they really feel like I don't get a badge unless I teach, although I do judge, and I do award ceremony, and I do make myself available with my great font of painting wisdom. And I told myself that I told them that I would be up for any other dog and pony shenanigans they wanted to do. So I even bring my own dog. All right, so I'm going to actually get out, because this mold line is pretty shallow, I am actually going to get out my file, do diamond file on it. And Kiki's going to be double sad today, because I did not refill her little topples full of pumpkin, her little rubber toys full of canned pumpkin. So she doesn't even have that today. She's totally neglected. Neglect a dog. Yeah, well, that's what happens with Reaper, and that's why I emailed them. Like, because it's so much less urgent than anything else that, like, you know, they no doubt it's a no-brainer to give me a badge, but, as you say, you know, it's like everybody else's, everything else in their face is far more urgent, and they just don't have the extra brain cells to think about rando things, right? And right now, I'm a rando thing. So that's why I appealed to them and became other than a rando thing. Became an actual thing. So I'm going to do real light on this filing. Pretty much coming over the top because most of the mold line is up this spine. But it's going to be hard to get at. That I might be able to get with a knife. You do need to actually get the book pages pretty clear, because if you want to do any freehand on it whatsoever, it needs to be smooth. It is, and it's just because everybody's got too much on their plates, right? Because that's the nature of the beast these days with all jobs. Everybody is doing the work of 2 or 3 people, or perhaps 5 or 6, depending on your job. And stuff gets missed, especially when it's not urgent. And I am not urgent. But it would be nice to be able to buy that Sophie. So we realized, I wouldn't have even realized there was something wrong, except that David had his badge, because he's teaching. So he had a claim his badge kind of thing going on, and I did not. I did not. So hopefully somebody gets the email. Yeah, I mean, come on. I've worked for Reaper for so long. It's never you. It's never like targeted. It's just zany brainedness. And if you had to do all the jobs that they had to do, you too would have a zany brain. There we go. A little bit better. Should be pretty smooth now. I think I got all of the bits and pieces here. Okay, sounds good, Quindy. Thanks. Will do. I was also going to hassle Ron to see if any of the, if there were any rooms still available, but I think I put that on my calendar. I don't think it's come up yet in the artist block. Because I don't think David's teaching enough to warrant one, and I'm not teaching, so... But I would gladly reimburse Reaper to get a room at the Con Hotel. So we'll see. We'll see. All right, so we're going to do a really warm white on this model, I think. So I'm going to actually start with my creamy ivory. And since I don't have my stained ivory anymore, I'm going to just add a little bit of rich leather to it. And if you want a shadow for creamy ivory, if you're looking for that creamy ivory triad kind of look, just look no farther than this. The rich leather will create a nice kind of biscotti color that will let us be a good shadow. My brain has been in the fog this morning. It's definitely a distracted brain. Although I got good sleep last night, I think. So, I don't know. It was one of those nights where I had really weird dreams. So we're going to mix up that white. We're also going to mix up our Hobgoblin blue, which is the blue we were using on her dress. I don't know why Hobgoblins get this awesome blue, but apparently they do. I'm going to do the bottom cover of the book in the blue. I'm going to do her insides, her front tabard and the inside of her collar in white. Those of you who are on my Patreon and saw my color composition PDF yesterday know that white near the face is generally a good idea, light and warm colors. But in this case, we can also take that white down because there will be more warm and light colors up here, and it doesn't matter if the white also extends down here. In fact, that way you're repeating the color across the model, so you start up here and it pulls your eye down. So that's the theory. If you're going to use white on a lower part of the model, make sure you're also using it on an upper part of the model. Yes, and I need to go over and say hi to. I got a new patron or two yesterday, so I will be sending you a hello email if you are watching. Sometimes I take a day or two to get to them. I'm gonna do 3 drops of the Creamy Ivory, which is one of my favorite base white colors. And then, as I said, since stained ivory is no longer a thing, Rich Leather, a drop of that into it. And I wouldn't use polished leather for this because that's a little bit too yellow. Rich Leather still has enough of a brownish tone that it can work for this. Boop. This morning my brain got totally blown over by production schedules of my books because I realized that there we go. And this actually isn't even as brown as I maybe would like it, but maybe it will work. Because I realized I really need to book covers really far in advance, and that means, guess what, guys? I need to figure out what I'm writing next year now. Like, I knew what the first 4 books were going to be. So what I'm going to do is, since that's not quite as brown as I would like, I'm going to do a Rich Leather in a separate pool, and I'm just going to use that to layer in for shading. But I'm going to start out with that 3-to-1. And I can darken this just a little bit. If you want to darken it and make it more brown, add a little bit of Russet Brown, 91.99 to it. Russet Brown is a perfect shadow for this. My artist is not abstract. So essentially I've just got to commit, right? Committing is hard. There are because I always knew what the first 4 Bear Kings books were going to be. And after that, I have quite a bit of stuff. Like, I have some different, like, if the first 4 Bear Kings books are kind of a quadrad, then the story can continue with separate trilogies or standalone type of books, or I can do it all as the Bear Kings, and that's what I have to figure out. Because technically all of those books should probably be the Bear Kings, except the ones about the trolls. But yeah, so I've got to kind of sit down and figure that out. Because it's getting to that point. Either that or I have to commit my cover artist to taking a break from Bear Kings for a while. I mean, the good thing is I kind of know the subject matter of upcoming books, so in the Bear Kings. But I probably need to sit down and figure out in what order I want to do. Sadly, that's the problem with having a good cover artist that books more than a year in advance. Is that you need to know what you're doing, which doesn't leave much room for spontaneity. So I just need to like figure out which books I want to write. So that's a nice warm white, definitely not a straight up white. Everybody judges a book by their cover, Big Tempo. Everybody. The cover is the first thing anybody looks at. Followed by the title. Followed by reading the blurb to find out if you're interested in the type of story it is. All right, so I'm just going to ignore the laces and just paint straight over this. And I'm going to ignore the trim and just paint straight over this. You can mess around and get all fine with it if you want, but it's much easier to just paint the cream color over everything and then come back and get the trim and the laces in a separate pass. Also, if you're just blocking in colors and you're just checking how things are going to look, then you haven't lost any real work or time by just blocking this way, because then if you decide you don't like the white up here, you can just paint over it instead of having painstakingly filled in the white in between all of these designs and then being forced to lose all that time as you decide you don't want that color after all. But yeah, Jolie's a scribe. And in Ron's fantasy world, which is the Reaper fantasy world, scribes and chroniclers go hand in hand, and the chroniclers work with the Templars often. So I don't feel bad about putting Templar colors onto a scribe. I probably know a little bit too much about Ron's world because of writing for Warlord. And I'm going to need a couple of coats here just to go over this gray with the white. Yeah, so I have to figure out which books go where, and this is distracting, and it needs to not be distracting today. I need to put it out of my mind and deal with it tomorrow, because I have a chapter I need to edit today. At least one. Okay, let's get some of this blue down and get the back part of that book. Her sleeves are also going to be white. And then we'll start shading that white a little bit. Yeah, Hobgoblin is a pretty blue. No doubt about that. Very pretty blue. Just gonna thin it just a little bit. Luckily, David is cooking tonight, so I don't need to worry about anything except probably getting some salad. So yeah, at this point, the problem is I don't know how fast I really realistically can write new books. I haven't put it to the test, so I have to kind of generalize. Although having the covers done in advance of the book being done is really not a big deal, as long as you know what the subject matter and the feel of the book is. You can usually get a good cover figured out. And again, I'm going to be painting mostly just over everything, and then I'll come back and pick up the trim details here. But I wanted more blue. Alrighty, so all blue. Yeah, but the first cover is arguably the most important Big Chimpo. Because when you run advertising on a series, you run advertising on the first book. Because you're not meaning for anybody to get into the series with, later books usually. So yeah, having a very, very good cover on the first book is ideal. But I'm using the same artist throughout the series, the same cover artist, so she's tops. Should be good. I actually went to my Write Club this past Sunday, and one of my other Write Club people also has just published his book. At least he published his ebook first, and then now he's working on his paperback edition. And his cover, I'm worried about his cover. He asked me for feedback early in the process, and I gave him feedback, but I don't think he liked my feedback, so, which is fair. He's writing Portal fantasy, although he is still writing YA fantasy, but it just seems very dark. Like, dark colors on covers don't do very well. But, I mean, you can always buck that trend, right? So, who am I to say one thing or another? Only thing I know is parroting what other people have told me. And, of course, I know my own personal taste. I'm just going to mix up some walnut here so I can do a little bit of... I've got a gap here underneath the book. There's just, like, kind of the underside of her collar there, and I need to put a dark shadow in there. But yeah, I really love my book covers, and they convert. I was reading my book on Amazon ads yesterday because I wanted to know what my conversion rate should be or to be in the, what's considered to be okay range, and my ads are okay range, so the book cover is definitely working. If you get no clicks at all, then your book cover is definitely not working. Yes, I'm painting a book cover while talking about book covers. It's meta. It's meta. But yeah, so we've got this just gap right down here, right? It's one of the only areas in the whole model where it's just kind of, there's kind of a gap because molding, the way the mold process is. So we're just going to paint that in dark. We're not going to worry about any details down there. We just want to block it in so we don't see the gray of the casting. And because nobody is going to see what's down there. And even if they did now, it just looks like a shadow, so it's good. But yeah, I am such a numbers data nerd that I'm like waiting with bated breath for this coming Monday, because then I'm going to take all the data from the little ad campaigns I've been running every week and see like what my best results have been. Which for me is exciting, because then I can decide which stuff isn't working, right? I have data. I love data. And the ads, it's just a learning thing, because I don't expect, on one book, you're not going to make your money back on advertising. But, so I'm paying for the learning opportunity. But it's really not very much. Amazon doesn't use much of your budget, unless you have really high bids. So I feel like this is actually a good investment. I think I've been running ads for a month, and I've paid less than $40. So, and I've gotten some reads and some clicks and some sales, so I'm pretty happy. Alrighty, let's see here. Now there is a tiny little kind of inner border on this dress here, which could be a bit difficult because it's so thin. I am going to line the inside of it. Because I want to have enough room to paint that border. So that means painting the inner edge of it. And I'll have to touch up with my white because I got a little bit crunchy there. Hello, Inara. And most of the conventional wisdom says you should always just do Facebook advertising when you're a fiction author, but you know what? You can lose a lot more money on Facebook advertising. So I decided I didn't want to go there. Okay, Crowley. Oh yeah, I would have slept late if David hadn't gone up and thrown a puppy onto my face. Bye, Crowley. Have a good meeting. As good a meeting as can be expected. All right. Because you see the outer rim here, but the inside border is very subtle. I can only just see it down here, and it gets very lightweight toward the top. So we'll see if I can even really fit that in. I mean, it's got to be there. It's just not sculpted super clear. Yeah, I have to text my mom today and find out if it's, because it's blowing west. And it hit Chicago, so I have to think that there has to be somewhere my mom is in southeast Wisconsin. So I text her later and ask her if she's shaking her fist at Canada for throwing their smoke on her. For once, it's not California throwing smoke on everybody. We've actually had a fair amount of rain. Fires were bad the first year I moved here, when Kiri was still alive. But then the last 2 years have actually been pretty good. I think last year we just got lucky. And this year there's been rain, actual rain, which helps to keep things from going too dry, obviously. I'm just going to trace over these ties. They're not going to be black. But just like with little tiny details like gemstones and eyeballs and stuff, if you fill it in black first, or in this case walnut, then you can go over the top with white and then another color. I may just go blue, to be honest. I feel like even though blue is a main color on this model, I don't have as much of it as I would like because of all the details. So I may go blue with the lacings. In which case we'll do white first. Alrighty. And it's kind of second nature for me also to line around the things that are kind of in the way of what I'm painting to. So like I lined around the belt after I got those ties. Probably going to go pretty orangey with the leather on this one because of the blue being the main color. It makes sense to go complementary with it. All right, I'm going to get my white together. Just kind of working on the front of this today, I think. And I do want to still get the white in on the sleeves and that kind of thing. We're doing the opposite of what we usually do. We usually work from the inside out. Usually I do skin tones first. But today I chose to go, and when we started this model, I chose to go with just the biggest area of color on the model, which was the blue. And then the white, second biggest. So we do have a lot of skin on this model, but because it's all very open, it's very easy to paint. So I don't feel like painting the rest of this is actually going to impinge on like being able to get to the skin, right? So that's something that you always consider also as far as when you start that. Okay, I'm gonna get my white. Gonna just do a 4-to-1 on this white because these straps are pretty thin. So if I went a 2-to-1, I could do it, but I'd have to like do more than one layer most likely. Nice, Pendrake. Yeah, potatoes in the air fryer are good. I haven't made twice baked potatoes in a while. Or baked potatoes in general. I do get to a point where I kind of crave them. Tonight would be a good time for it, but that would just add a lot of calories to my day. Just more a thing that I save for the weekend. We're doing a flat iron steak tonight. They had flat irons in the store. So I salted it to let sit overnight, and then David's gonna put a rub on it and grill it when he gets home. Should be tasty. Flat iron steaks are tasty. Yeah, I haven't done the blue and white for a long time, if ever, on this stream. So kind of a classic color combo. Felt like classic on this model. Plus, I mean, a lot of other people have like gone red or brown or purplish with her dress. I've done a lot of purple, so I felt like we would just go. So you see how painting the entire strand, not just when you're painting these strings or things like this, don't just paint the top. Paint also, you see down the sides of each of these strings, these laces. And that's when you see, when you put the white on, you only go on the top, and that outlines it without you having to actually outline it. So it saves you work. I do see a touch-up area I need to touch up. So I got new bird food for my bird feeder to spoil my birds with. I'm getting a lot more little tufted titmice. They're adorable. I know the name is sus, but they're adorable little tufted head gray birds, and I love them very much. Although the house wrens are now, like, the males like to fight over who gets to sit on top of the feeder. So maybe my food is getting too good. Yeah, we just decided to get other things off of our counter Twistedoma to use to get the air fryer. It is the appliance that I use more than any other, however. Like, everything else except David's espresso machine has gotten evicted from our counter, and we just grab, like, things like our toaster and stuff like that. We just get out when we need them because we don't use them every day. And, like, my food processor and stuff like that. Those all live in the other, and my Instant Pot. Those all live in the other, in the cabinets in our garage. But the air fryer we use almost every day because it's so good for doing things like Brussels sprouts. We do Brussels sprouts in it. We do salmon. Anything I need to have crispy. Brussels sprouts and salmon are probably my two favorite things to make in the air fryer. But we also do things like, if we're doing Indian, we'll get the freezer samosas, like the pre-made samosas, and we'll do those in the air fryer, and they're fantastic. All that stuff is really good in the air fryer. Yeah, mine is not that. I don't think it's 6. I don't know. I'm not sure what size mine is. Yeah, I mean, it's good to go perfectly clear countertops because it tells you what you really use a lot, right, Big Chimpo? Because we all let stuff, if you're like me, stuff builds up on the counter. Like, it's just stuff. And, but I hate that because when I want to keep my counters clean. Like, my kitchen is the one area that I try to, like, obsessively keep clean because I don't like to cook in it unless it's nice and clean. So yeah, I try to keep things. Oh, then I have a 6-quart one, probably Pendrake. It's not mine is not tiny. Yeah, but I wouldn't invest in one of those unless you're sure you're going to use it. Like, there are times like that I would like to do salmon and Brussels sprouts at the same time, but I just usually just crank up the oven at that point if I'm going to do. That's what we did last night. I had salmon fillets stuffed with crab and lobster, and we did those. And I could have done those in the air fryer and the Brussels sprouts in the oven, but I decided to do it the other way around. Would have gotten a better skin on the salmon in the air fryer. It does make a difference having that small area where you have intense air circulation. Just gonna outline around the leg here. There, was bugging me. Yeah, actually, Big Chimpo, recently. Because I've done it all the ways. Like, I love Brussels sprouts, and I especially love Brussels sprouts with red bell pepper, onion, and pancetta. And doing those in the oven is very good. But recently, I did them in my cast iron, and that wins. Like, hands down, best Brussels sprouts. Air fryer, oven, convection oven, doesn't matter. In the cast iron, that's the way to go. The only downside is the cleanup, it's more cleanup and it's also more prep time. So I don't do it unless I have the energy and the time. But boy, they were freaking fantastic. Yeah, David didn't like he didn't like broccoli until I sauteed it for him. Like, he'd only ever had steamed broccoli. And then I sauteed it like with red bell pepper, and he's just like, "Oh, this is really good." Maybe not everything, but with that, it worked, right? Because you're really just tossing the Brussels and other veggies in oil. The thing is, I really wanted like the taste of the roasted bell pepper and roasted onion instead of just the stir fried, because it's a different flavor, right? And so that's why I thought I'll just do it in the cast iron, because that's how I do my fajita veggies when I want that deep roasted flavor. And I'm like, well, why couldn't I do Brussels sprouts in there, right? So it worked just great. It worked a treat. And I even got crispy leaves, which I wasn't sure if I would get the crispy leaves in the cast iron. You know, the little Brussels sprout leaves, get separated and then they turn super crispy and awesome. Yes. You can go directly through Reaper Fancy Sauce. We have a B2B site. You can go through a distributor if you wish, but the distributor is probably going to have like supply like hiccups, because often like if they can't get something, they'll just say, "Oh, Reaper's not making this anymore." We've had this happen, and it's not true, but it gets confusing for stores. So if you can get a B2B account with Reaper, I would do that, or if your store is willing to, rather. But yeah, so I would go through Reaper. I mean, it's going to give you a good discount, and you're going to get the freshest paint, and you're also going to essentially be able to order things that, like, because distribution, right? They're going to do an order once a month. So if they run out of something and you order it from them, then, they're just not going to have it. Whereas Reaper, if they run out of something, they usually, unless their intention is not to carry it anymore, they can replace it within, a few days to a week. Hey, it's Miniatures Den. This is the blue I'm never going to tell you. No, just kidding. Just kidding, Bull. It is Hobgoblin blue, because apparently hobgoblins have the prettiest blues. For some reason. Hobgoblins have a propensity for gorgeous blue gowns. And that's just the way it is. Yes, shout out to the Luca for the raid. Thank you, Luca. I hope you're doing good today. All right, so I am just kind of organically working on this model. I've been working on some blue and white. I decided to do the classic blue and white on her. Yeah, who knew? Hobgoblins, the peacocks of the goblinoid taxonomy, yes. Sigwolf, I don't know that I buy that about hobgoblins. I don't know. I'm dubious about that. Dubious about that color choice. I do not think I would paint, no matter how classic, I do not think I would paint my hobgoblins with blue skin. I always felt more like they were like bugbears without the fur. Like more brown skinned. That's how I would paint mine, but it is what it is with D&D. There we go. So again, I don't even have to worry about lining around these, because I've painted the entire lace in the dark color, and now I just run my brush along the top, and I can get essentially automatically outlined laces, which look so nice and neat. And then I can paint them with the color. I'm okay with aliens being blue. Okay, so now we've got those. Now we can do the blue over the top and get more of our blue integrated on this model. Reaper tries to turn around orders fast if it's a game store. Our internet department is pretty on top of things. So yeah, I think it's B2B reapermini.com. I don't have my phone. My phone's on the charger because I ran it all the way down this morning. So, but it's like Reaper B2B, as in B number 2B, I think. And do be aware that our office peeps are typically like buried. So if you don't get a response like right away, be persistent. Not like obnoxious, but be persistent. Like, touch base in a few days if you don't hear in a few days. Because often Reaper, and I speak as having worked at the factory for 17 years, Reaper, everybody's wearing 15 hats. So, because we're actually a very small company for being a worldwide miniatures company. So, give us a little leeway there, but and patience. But they may get back to you right away. I'm not sure because I haven't worked at I moved out here in 2020. So I haven't been on site. I don't know how things are running these days, but traditionally Reaper's everybody's very, very busy. And we will get to you, we promise. But sometimes if things are like currently hitting the fan, it may take us a few days. And with ReaperCon coming up at the very, very beginning of September, I'm sure there's lots of people running around with their hair on fire. I just noticed I had a little extra mold line there. I'm gonna grab it. There we go. Little tiny mold lines coming out of nowhere, like you do. And there's one on the side of the book here too, but I can scrape that off real gently. There we go. And if you're local, coming in to talk to people may be actually even better. Local to North Texas. Volnavia, thanks. I'm glad. Yeah, I mean, we have great customer service. I've just seen that sometimes if we're really, really slammed, it can take us a while to get back to new business, new stores contacting us. Like I had a friend who also opened a game store and he was having problems, and I'm just like, just be patient, give them some time, they'll get back to you. And I believe they did, so. So more blue. Indianapolis area, yeah. Do you go to the Gamma trade show? Or I guess if you're not the manager, you probably wouldn't. But Reaper's at Gamma every year. That's another good way to make contacts. But yeah. In general, getting an account with us is great because we try to ship stuff super fast. And you typically get a pretty good discount. We do not. I don't believe we go to Gen Con anymore. We stopped going to Gen Con a while ago, Fancy, because essentially we would always hemorrhage money on the event because no matter how cheap we tried to go, we had to bring enough personnel in and disrupt the factory for a week. And Gen Con, there was 1 year that we had to skip for some reason. I don't remember why, but Ed made the call to skip, and then Gen Con promptly revoked our priority booth standings, so we would have had to like get back in line for like booth placement. And Ed was so angry about that. Ed was the CEO and my boss. He was so angry at that they wouldn't work with him that he just essentially decided not to go to Gen Con anymore because it was actually costing us money. Like we would never make enough to cover costs. So sadly, not anymore. I mean, and part of it is, when you've got a great internet department and we try to turn around orders same day or next day, um, you know, you can get all our stuff online. There were con deals usually on like paint sets and stuff, but nothing like super big, and we never timed big releases with the con. So then it's like, it wasn't as much of an incentive to find Rupert at the con. Yeah, going to ReaperCon is worth it. ReaperCon is Labor Day weekend. It's in Denton, Texas, which is where Reaper is headquartered. So you can go to the factory. And you can talk to people on site. Yeah, Gen Con and Ed tried to come to agreements like several times in the years following. But they could just never work out something that made them both happy, and so it just sat there. And Ed passed away this past year, but I suspect that Dave is, being an accountant, being our chief accountant, I suspect he also has no urge to go back to Gen Con, sadly. It is sad because it is the con, right? But boy, it's expensive. Nothing, Richard. Nothing. Just chatting. To start, there's a link on the main Reaper Mini page for retailers. You start with an email. Yeah, it may have been replaced by a new program. Yeah, actually, do that, Fancy. Help at reapermini.com. Which goes to Katie, or used to. Might be somebody else now, but it's for general questions. Just kind of outline like who you are, what you're looking for. Ask what the best way is to get started with a retail account. And that gives you not only like whoever is supposed to help with the business stuff, but it also gives you our help desk kind of keeping an eye on things as well. It gives you an extra person that you can touch base with. Reaper is definitely not big corporate America. Reaper is like a bunch of people who really love miniatures, who are like all wearing multiple hats and doing their best to like keep things moving. It's a very like, it feels like family type of company. It always has been. They went a little more corporate when they started getting to the point where they could offer health insurance right before I left, but right before I left being full-time, I mean, but yeah. They will do the best they can by you. But you might have to poke them. Well, I mean, Gen Con regularly hits 40,000 to 50,000 people, doesn't it? Or more? The thing with Gen Con is just getting a hotel room, Pendrake. I think that when it gets like to be a real pain to get the hotel room, and then a real definite pain to like find places to eat out every night because everything is so slammed that you're waiting an hour if you've got more than a couple people. That's when it gets big for me. It's why I actually have a connection to get Comic-Con tickets. A friend of mine from the dog world, whose husband is a comics artist. But I haven't taken her up on it because I'm just like, but San Diego Comic-Con is immense. And so like, it's huge. It's just too big. 30 to 45 minute drive from downtown to get a hotel room. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense, Phoenix. Yeah. And that's a good idea, like a B&B. That's actually a good workaround, right? But But yeah. I was still living in Wisconsin when Gen Con was still in Wisconsin. In Milwaukee. Date myself there. I have fond memories of it, but I will say that, like, for miniatures cons, I think it's got to be either Adepticon or ReaperCon, depending on, or both. I mean, David and I tend to do both. ReaperCon if you're a painter or a sculptor. But Adepticon's also good for that because they've got a lot of different painting competitions going on, all under one roof. If you're a painter who likes to do that. And if you're a gamer painter, then Adepticon definitely has much more gaming because that's its central focus. Just gonna do a little bit of outlining around here. I'm just kind of like painting like as I would paint anything. It's just organically. I'm like, oh, I could line a little bit here. I could set this off. I could, Oh, I moved from Milwaukee to Indianapolis a long time ago, Pendrake. Back before I even worked for Reaper. Like back post-college for me. Like decades ago. It's been in Indianapolis for decades. It shows how much you follow the con scene. But yeah, Milwaukee was just too small, and it was just getting too big. As D&D boomed and other games took off, Milwaukee was. I mean, that's when. Back when I went, when it was still in Milwaukee, was when Magic: The Gathering just came out, and White Wolf had just released Vampire, the role-playing game, and and D&D was starting to make a comeback, and like. Yeah, so a bunch of stuff was booming in the gaming world, and Milwaukee couldn't handle it. It was not a good enough hotel situation downtown. And now Indianapolis, which is a major hub, is having trouble housing everybody, but if Indianapolis can't handle it, like, who can handle it? So, right. Yes, ReaperCon, exactly. Okay, you totally, Richard, you totally outdated me then. But yes, with ReaperCon, relax, have fun. Do not book every available slot. Leave yourself time to wander around in the vendor area and chat with people who paint and, sit and paint yourself. Take the factory tour so you can see where Reaper makes the magic. Yeah, what an RS says, Slayer. What the biggest mistake people make when they come to ReaperCon, Slayer, is they book a ton of classes because they think that's how they're going to get value out of their trip. In reality, it's much wiser to only book one class a day, spend some time actually painting after that class and practicing the things you learned in that class so that it actually sticks in your head a little bit, and just spend a really relaxed time hanging out with a ton of people who love miniatures. Because there's also the competition room. Like, you can wander around the vendor area, which usually has all sorts of models and model-related stuff for you to sink your nose into. And then there's the MSP Open, which is our painting competition, and people start entering their stuff pretty early, so you can just wander around the competition room looking at all the fantastic stuff. And then just take it relaxed. Like, go out to lunch with people. Like, actually Reaper or Denton has a couple of actually very good restaurants. So for dinner, think about wandering outside of the convention area. Multiple advice threads in the forum on Reaper's site from previous years. Yeah, it's worth checking those out. But yes, if you were head down to game tables, you miss a lot of stuff. Yep. Well, we can tell how there goes the neighborhood. Here's Luca. Oh, geez. I thought that, actually, I hate to say this, but that was Gen Con. Gen Con was more infamous for that miniatures den. ReaperCon is pure and innocent.
We're wholesome. We're wholesome. But I've heard plenty of stories about gamer hookups at Gen Con. Yeah, what would we do without Luca? Is pot legal in Texas yet? Oh, man. So now I'm just using the side of my brush. I'm going to go over these white lines that I did on the laces and bring a blue. And I may decide that I want an accent color on this model. Because if I, just like with the mouse sling, remember the mouse sling? Here, mouse sling. So just like we decided on him that we really needed red as an accent, and so I had to work it in, I may get really bored with the blue here and decide I need something else. But I'll probably wait until I do the leather, because the leather may be reddish enough to make it work. Hotel has no smoking policy, yeah. But yeah, ReaperCon is chill. ReaperCon is chill. It is not a rush around. Like, it really encourages you to actually take a real mini painting vacation. Like, if you play it that way. Otherwise, if you try to cram too much in, you end up still feeling like you've missed out. And you're totally burned out and fried by the end of Saturday. And then you just can't enjoy anything on Sunday. Fancy. Yeah, I just did red on the mouseling though, so I was thinking about doing it more subtly here, so, or subtly, as it were. But I may change my mind, so we'll see. We'll see, because we haven't even thrown in skin tones, hair color, anything. So the model looks very duochrome right now, because it is. So I won't make that. What do you mean the vertical hanging element? This is a belt. It's a Ren Fair style. I'll call it the Ren Fair style of belt. It's a belt, although it's a little bit weird with the way it catches, but yeah. The one where you hang it around your waist and then loop it through a ring, and it falls down. Yeah, that would be the belt. Boy, and you know what, Fancy? Now you're asking me questions that I actually don't know, because although I was actually a Reaper owner for many years, when I moved out here, I became part-time and cashed in my ownership, and I'm not in anything anymore. Like, I don't have any, even though I helped create ReaperCon when I worked at Reaper, I no longer have a hand in that, so I don't know. All I can tell you is that my husband is teaching. He's David Diamondstone. He's won Crystal Brush stuff. He's real high level. Yeah. Yeah, they'll be up. But kicking, we usually have a wide variety of instructors. Like, people are able to submit, they'll submit a potential class and get approved, essentially. Not for sale yet, yeah. Yeah, the link for artists to submit their classes went out, I think, less than a month ago, so people are still getting in. And then Ron and the others have to kind of organize a schedule and assign rooms and stuff, so. Yeah, I think 2 classes a day is too much. I just get so tired. So if you're really energetic and really proactive, maybe 2 classes a day would work for you, but I find 2 classes too much. The only way I would take 2 classes in a day is if they were the 2 topics that I really, really wanted. But when I'm at a con, I like a lot of just chill time. Like, when I go to Adepticon, I don't teach. And I really enjoyed myself at the last Adepticon I went to because I didn't teach. I had a lot of time to just sit and paint and wander around the vendor hall looking at things I shouldn't buy but would anyway, and looking at the painting competition entries, talking to people. Re-meeting old friends and acquaintances. There we go. Stuff like that, you know, like you do. Should be able to see the events listing. There we go. Quindy with the link. Quindy with the link. Yeah, if you wake up at 6 a.m. and drink a Red Bull for breakfast, you can handle 2 classes a day. Right. If you're really, or if you're Joe Orteza and you've got a cup of coffee in each hand, a latte in one hand and a cappuccino in the other. Go to the tabletop events site. Okay, there you go. And there we go. Quindy with the links. Yeah, the ReaperCon site is a separate site, and they update it a bit more as we get closer to the con. But as Quindy pointed out, the events site. Oh, okay. So class tickets were going on sale soon. A lot of the artists are going to be kind of homegrown Reaper artists, Fancy. So some of them some of them have entered bigger competitions. You're more likely to see them on something like Gen Con painting competition than you are Crystal Brush or, Golden Demon. Although we do on occasion have Golden Demon people teaching, but is Lovejoy there this year? Does anybody know? Aaron Lovejoy from Miniature Monthly is a frequent attendee and instructor when he comes. Yeah. Aaron's mad good, and sometimes we get Matt DiPietro, but he's been alternating with us and Nova Open, I think, or one of which con is it? Is it LVO? LVO. That's the same weekend. Yeah. So Lovejoy is a very top notch painter who's won a lot of awards, and he does it for a living. Runs Miniature Monthly and his own painting studio. Has been a full-time miniature painter for many years now. Has also lately gotten into the sculpting side, thanks to 3D sculpting. And the sculptors that you see teaching, Fancy, are actually Reaper sculptors. So Bob Rodolphi, Julie Guthrie, Bobby Jackson. Bobby Jackson sculpted this. Jason Wiebe, Gene Van Horn, Christine Van Patten, all of those people are professional sculptors for Reaper. So, Andy Pieper. So if you're at all interested in the sculpting side, it's a huge resource that I think a lot of people miss, just because ReaperCon is small enough to still fly under the radar a lot. And during the con, probably the coolest thing, Fancy, is that all the artists are seated in long tables in artist row. And you may not, if you can't get into a class with one of us, but you still have questions about a particular technique that we're really good at, or you walk by and see a model we've painted and you're like, oh my God, how do you do that? If we're there, we're going to answer your questions. It's just people are obviously up and teaching at times and they're not in their seat, but most of us try to spend a fair amount of time in our seats so that we can talk to con goers, and that's free. You just wander by, you ask us questions. Please say hi, we don't bite. And everybody's very friendly and everybody's very cool. All right, I think we're looking pretty good there. What else do I want to do while I've got, the white. Yes, green users there in the chat, Fancy. That's Julie Guthrie and Bob Rodolphi. Julie has been sculpting for a long time. Worked for Ralpartha and Grenadier back in the day. Is our favoritist sculptor of dragons ever. And her husband, Bob Rodolfi, although known for his undead sculpts, is also a wizard with polystyrene terrain. And they still sculpt in the traditional fashion. So if you want to learn how to sculpt with green stuff instead of 3D, they are your resource. 40 years. Yes. 4 decades of sculpting. They are pros. So yeah, ReaperCon's cool. Like, and the painting competition is probably one of the most friendly and open in the hobby. Like, if you're looking for something that's hyper competitive, then go for Golden Demon or one of the competitions at, at Adepticon, or like LVO or things like that. But we do open system at ReaperCon, which means that if your work deserves a gold, it gets a gold. You're not competing against other people. You're just competing against yourself to see if you can, paint a model this year that was better than your model last year. So we don't directly compare entrance to entrance. And there are also a ton of manufacturer awards, including Reaper's own manufacturer award, which has a very nice succubus trophy. The Sophie trophy. But yeah, there's a lot of trophies and gift certificates and all sorts of awards and stuff at the con. Yes, bring throat lozenges. Yeah, for sure. Even I get hoarse, and I sit here and do streaming every day. Yep, there we go. MSP Open. But, I mean, the MSP Open has, like, the biggest awards ceremony anywhere except possibly World Expo of miniatures. The Miniatures Model World Expo. And I don't know, I haven't actually been to their to World Expo yet. That's on my list, but I haven't managed it. But we may be bigger than them. Just because, like, almost everybody enters in the MSP Open, and even if you don't enter, you've got a friend or a spouse who entered. So, hey, and I can even adapt this cream color to be in the pages of the book. I'll just color it. So what it comes down to is almost the entire con attends the award ceremony every year, which is crazy. And one of my favorite things about ReaperCon is that everybody's in the main hall anyway, so everybody is there to cheer on their friends and their family members. Probably is my favorite thing about ReaperCon, actually, is all the support. We are a feel-good community, and it is a feel-good convention. But I think the reason that we don't get, like, more of the big-name painting instructors is that our competition is that kind of open thing. It's not hyper-competitive. And so we do get more famous names from time to time, but it doesn't draw them like Golden Demons at Adepticon will draw them. Or like Crystal Brush. So it depends on your speed, really, I think. If you are looking for a laid-back miniatures convention where you can just totally immerse yourself in the hobby and talk to fantastic people about painting and sculpting and buy some cool things, then ReaperCon's probably your con. We've managed to avoid most drama at ReaperCon. Not all, but most. But yeah, I feel like there are enough, like, hyper competitive first, second, third painting competitions in the world. And I am happy to have a very family-friendly competition at ReaperCon. We all love to cheer on the kids. Okay, so this is all going to look the same, but obviously once I start shading and highlighting this cream, it's going to, it's going to be different, right? It's all going to go different ways. So right now we are just hanging out. Yes, exactly. Nova is the same weekend, and they are a hyper-competitive competition. So a lot of the bigger names are going to go that way because they want to compete at that level. And that's fair. We still have very, quality teachers. And I feel like that for intermediate level painters who are trying to up their game, we still have enough quality instruction that you can. Yeah, hypothetically, the door is open to not getting something at ReaperCon, but you would have to turn in a pretty bad model to not get a certificate. I mean, it is possible. It is possible to get a score of 0, but with three people in every judging team. And anybody who's entering a painting competition is going to have at least decent basic level skills. That's the thing, right? But yeah, we still get some really nice models from some amazing painters, so. Getting 0. Neurotic. Oh, with the slam. With the slam. I love it. I love it. Yeah, oh, I bet. Buglips is the type who would be trying to get 0. Ugh. You people. Yep. It was nice to see you, Turgeon. Have a good afternoon. Or evening, or whatever, wherever you are. I guess I have to turn this boat over to Luca. Which is fine, because I'm kind of like at the point where I've base coated all the things. And next time I think we will... actually, I could do a little bit of shading, couldn't I? Just a little, though. I don't want to keep Luca too late. I do want to line around here. Don't leave me with him. Yep. Sorry, it do be that way, Quindy. I have a puppy to walk and a chapter to edit. So I'm going to throw a little bit of shading up here. Alrighty. Just kind of like blocking in a little bit of this real quick. Yeah, I feel like that's going to be a good shadow for this. So, alright. I just wanted to get that down. Sirens go off at turnover time. There we are. A little blending. Bloop, bloop. Alrighty. Thanks for hanging out and chatting today, guys. Sorry that we didn't do anything like super advanced or any like crazy blending or stuff today. It mostly, at the beginning of the model, it's a bit of, filling stuff in and figuring stuff out. So we are going to just keep working with this lady. Probably we'll do skin next time. We need to figure out a skin tone for her. But yeah. Thank you, everyone. I'll try to be a little earlier tomorrow. I've been wrestling with the puppa. She's been kind of a distraction in the morning lately because she's been bored and wanting attention. As you do. You know, just like Luca. Yep. Ah, whew. But seriously, have a lovely day. Tomorrow, we will be back with our memorial mini for Kathy. We were working on our NMMs last time, and we're still going to be working on our NMMs this time. I'll probably try to get the legs done tomorrow. I think I want to get those legs taken care of. Then we'll get, that'll put us like done with a lot of the model. So at least with the NMM, and maybe we'll switch and do some cloth for fun. So yeah, there we are, everybody. I hope you have a lovely Wednesday. Halfway through the week. Yay! We're closer to the weekend already. Have a good one, everybody. Luke, I hope you have a fantastic stream. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.